Hay tres clases de personas.
Es asqueroso.
Haru.
The platform. At the beginning of the movie, shows a prison head who is preparing food very carefully and professionally. The food is prepared for too many people.
Hay tres clases de personas. Los de arriba, los de abajo, los que caen.
The movie will focus on a man named Goring, when he realized he was already in a concrete prison which reads number 48 with an old name Trimagasi. Trimagasi explained that in the prison the point is to eat food every day, will be sent from top to bottom via food elevator, and will stop at every floor in time certain, which is where the highest floor is the 0 floor which is far above them. After that, Goring looked at the hole in the middle of the prison. From there were still many similar but not the same cells under them. That means, there are many other prisoners down there who need food. He also explained, who was on the bottom floor, only able to consume food that was left by the occupants above it, which means, the higher the level of the floor the better. The 48th floor itself is in the middle of the middle and is already in the pretty good. Every floor in this prison is filled by 2 prisoners, they will stay together for 1 month, and will continue together if both are still alive. Trimagasi himself, he has been in this prison for several months, and he already understands how the prison works.
Se ha apagado la luz.
Not long after that, the green light came on, which indicated the food elevator will soon descend from the top to each floor below it. The hungry Trimagasi immediately devoured the food.
Es asqueroso.
And while the Goring prefers to hold back its hunger rather than eating the leftovers from the 92 people above it. While holding back hunger, Goring took the initiative to save a pair from the food elevator to eat. After 2 minutes, the food elevator began to descend to the floor below them, namely the 49th floor. At the same time, Trimagasi even spat on the food elevator. Then suddenly the temperature felt very hot. After being asked, by the Trimagasi explained that, the cells will be hot or cold. If there are prisoners who store or hoard food, then he immediately throws it away, the pair that he saved earlier. Flashback, where Goring was being interviewed by one of the prison administrators, it was told that each inmate is allowed to bring any one object to use while in prison, where at that time Goring chose to bring a book for him to read while in prison, while Trimagasi prefers a knife to carry. Goring said, he could be in that prison of his own free will. He will voluntarily be a prisoner in this prison for 6 months, with the aim of completing his studies and getting an accredited diploma degree. Different from Trimagasi, he can be there on the charge of murder that he committed. After that, the lights in the prison turned red. At once the food elevator shot back to the top floor quickly. The next day, Goring asked Trimagasi, how many are there the total floor in this prison? He answered, that while he was here the lowest level he had ever occupied was level 132, of course, at that level we would not get any food rations. What else? The 132nd floor is not the most broad level, and there are many other floors below it. Hearing this, Goring and then took the initiative to tell each floor to ration food for the 2 people who were downstairs, but casually, Trimagasi even peed the food elevator. The reason he did it simply, because he had felt the same thing when he was downstairs. After a few days of starvation, by necessity, the Goring started want eat the leftover food. After finishing eating, suddenly, there is a prisoner's corpse that fell from the top floor. And then, followed a woman covered in blood named Miharu. The woman descended along with the food elevator. Goring asked, "Who and why did Miharu come down?" Trimagasi explained that Miharu went downstairs every month to look for her daughter. When the food elevator stopped on the 29th floor, Miharu was attacked and dragged by the two occupants on that floor. Goring, who cares about him, he wants to jump down so he can help him, but Miharu managed to kill the two people and continued his journey downstairs. Time passed, where after almost a month the two of them spent time together and became close. And after even 1 month the floor was random again, but strangely when Goring woke up he was already been tied on the bed. Well, no doubt, he was tied up by Trimagasi and his body will be made into food stock by Trimagasi. The reason is because this month they have to occupy the 171st floor. Of course, they will not get food rations on such a low floor. The plan is, that if he is very hungry then he will eat little by little Goring meat so that Goring does not bleed to death. On the 8th day, Trimagasi couldn't hold back his hunger anymore. He started slicing the Goring meat little by little for him to eat. Luckily there was Miharu who came down together with the food elevator and immediately helped him. Miharu also asked Goring to kill Trimagasi's. Of course, with anger and revenge, Goring immediately killed Trimagasi. Then, Miharu ate the meat of Trimagasi, and she also fed the Goring meat of the Trimagasi. At first the Goring felt disgusted and immediately vomited the meat, but because had been a week he didn't eat anything, so he was forced to swallow a few pieces of Trimagasi's meat. After that, Miharu continued her mission to find her daughter downstairs. In the following month, Goring woke up on a pretty good floor, namely the 33rd floor. His friend was a woman named Imogiri who always brought a dog with her. It turned out that this woman was one of the admin officers who was already working there for 25 years, and she was also the one who interviewed Goring before he was sent to prison. Goring asked, how many inmates were in this prison? For more details, Imogiri himself didn't know how many inmates there were in total, she only knew there were about 200 floors in the prison. Of course, the food provided may not be able to meet the needs of 400 people, but Imogiri believes that it can be enough, as long as everyone has a sense of tolerance and eats just enough. Imogiri can be here because he realizes that he will not live long because of the cancer she suffers. He voluntarily goes to prison, and plans to create a sense of tolerance so that every prisoner get food. When the food elevator came, Imogiri rationed 2 plates of food for the floor below her. She also urged the prisoners under her to do the same thing, with the aim that all prisoners get food, but the prisoners did not care, and instead said when else can enjoy food this delicious. 15 days in a row, Imogiri kept rationing food, but still the prisoners didn't care about Imogiri's directions. Annoyed by it, Goring then threatened he would urinate in the food elevator every day. If they persisted and didn't listen to Imogiri's directions, then the prisoners obeyed. The next day, Miharu went down with the food elevator in a badly injured condition. The reason was, because he had fought with the occupants of the top floor. So it was, Goring and Imogiri immediately helped Miharu who were already seriously injured. After how long, Goring woke up and saw Miharu fighting with Imogiri. The reason, was because Miharu had eaten Imogiri's favorite dog. A month later, Goring woke up on the 202nd floor. Even worse now, Imogiri has hanged himself. Even Goring is frustrated. So frustrated he is hallucinating seeing the spirits of Trimagasi, and Imogiri seduced herself to eat Imogiri's flesh. Every day, the food elevator comes without any food left. Until he accidentally tore the paper from the book he brought for him to eat. With a limp body, B counted the number of times the food elevator stopped and wrote it down against the wall with broken glass. On the sidelines, Because of the presence of the spirit of Trimagases who always seduced him, Goring and then affected, which then ate the Emojiri meat little by little for a month. The following month, Goring was placed on the 6th floor with his new friend, Baharat. Of course, this was the best level he had in this prison. Baharat himself wants to escape from the prison by using the rope he chose when he first entered the prison. His plan is to seduce the 2 prisoners who are on the 5th floor to help him climb to that floor. In the sense that there was a positive response from the occupants of the 5th floor, he immediately threw the rope he was carrying. Excitedly he climbed the rope. Unfortunately, just as he was almost there, he was tricked and cheated by the occupants of the 5th floor. Sometime later, the food elevator arrived at their place. The food that came was still neatly arranged and there was still plenty of it. But unfortunately, the prisoners on the 7th floor seemed to ignore the fate of other prisoners, because they instead ate the food to their heart's content. This month is the last month of Goring in prison. But Goring's heart seems to be moved to improve the mechanism of the prison system. He also invites Baharat to help him go downstairs, with the aim of distributing enough food on each floor like Emojiri did when he was still alive. According to his calculations last month, there were about 250 floors in that prison. At first, Baharat refused, because he himself wanted to escape by going upstairs. Why did he even go downstairs? Goring explained that if he helped him, he would be able to follow the food elevator from the ground floor to the top floor, and then Baharat agreed immediately.
Espero que os maten a los dos, gilipollas.
When they start descending, residents of the 7th to 50th floors are prohibited from eating by them. The plan is that they will start distributing the food from the 51st floor onwards, and if they fight they will be beaten. On their way, they met a wise man named Brambang, who was a friend of Baharat. The man suggested to bring a message to be brought to the top floor. The message must be a food which is a symbol of the message itself. And coincidentally also, the chosen food is panna cotta cake, which is a dish in the kitchen scene, when the head of the kitchen is angry because there's a chef's hair on the cake. As planned, they started distributing food on the 51st floor equally to each floor.
No, si tú cuidas de él.
Until finally, they met Miharu, who was being brutally massacred. Seeing that, they tried to help her, but while helping, Goring and Baharat were beaten up and injured quite badly. Lucky, Baharat managed to turn things around and then helped Goring. After that, he continued his journey to the ground floor, and left Miharu, who was already dead. Arriving at the 250th floor, the food elevator didn't want to stop and instead continued to go down. Meaning that, the 250th floor was not the ground floor like Goring estimates. And if you look at the lower floor, the worse the condition of the prisoners. They were confused, because the food elevator actually stopped on the 333rd floor, where there was no one at all. After watching it for a while, it turned out that someone was hiding under the bed. When they approached it, the food elevator went down and left them. turns out that the hiding is the child of Miharu who he has been looking for. With a heavy heart, they also give panna cotta to eat the child who is starving, even though they deliberately save the panna cotta to the top floor as a message. After falling asleep, Goring woke up and found that Bharat had bled to death. He was overshadowed by the spirits of Trimagasi, Imogiri, Miharu and Bharat, who informed him that the child was his message. The next day, when the food elevator came back, the child was immediately taken to the food elevator, and went down first to the ground floor. When they arrived at the ground floor, the spirit of the Trimagasi came back to Goring and said that the message did not need an introduction. Meaning that Goring had to get down from the food elevator and let the child go upstairs alone. After that, the food elevator moved back up fast, and was ridden by Miharu's child. And the end.